Hello again, YouTube. It's Jennifer. Thanks for tuning into Life with Jen and MS. And this video, I'm going to talk about my diagnosis story / journey, as it's kind of taken 5 years to get to an official diagnosis. This started for me back in late 2014. I started to get blurred lines in my vision, and I went to the local eyeglass place where you can get, eye exam. And no matter how many drops the doctor put in my eyes, and no matter how many times he clicked the little thing that they put in front of your eyes, the letter was always blurry. And I was like, it's still blurry. It's still blurry. And so he recommended I go to a retinal specialist. So I make an appointment and I go to a retinal specialist. And within this span of weeks, my vision is still blurry, which is crazy to think about now that I went that amount of time not being able to fully see. But I had a small baby, and I think a lot of it in my mind, I was like, I was just really tired. I got 3 other kids. So I think I kind of blew it off. But I go see the retinal specialist, and while he's looking at my eyes, and he's like, and it's still blurry, because while I'm filling out paperwork, I'm holding the paper up and down in between these blurred lines in my vision to fill it out. And so when I finally get in there with him, he looks at my eyes, puts the light in my eyes. He's like, looking into your eyes, your vision should be 20/20. So I think you need to see a neurologist. So he recommends a neurologist. And I go to this neurologist, and they schedule me for Evo potential test, where they put the little sticky things with the electrode or magnetic things that track the stimulation in your brain based on what you see on a screen. It was like this red dot on the screen, and based on, I guess, the reaction of your eyes to that dot and the signals it sends in your brain, it tracks it. And so I was told that that test was abnormal. I had my first MRI, and that test was abnormal. And so then I get a call, and they're like, we think you have optic neuritis, which could be a first sign of multiple sclerosis. And I immediately burst into tears. I remember running out the house, and my husband was on the phone, on his phone outside, and I was like, they think I got multiple sclerosis. And the doctor's still on the phone. I'm crying with the doctor's office on the phone. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And so what they were trying to explain to me is that many times optic neuritis is the first symptom. I think he said 70% of people who have optic neuritis will end up with a diagnosis of MS. I think it's 70-some%. And then within 10 years, it's 80-something%. And so I was like, surely it's got to be something else. I need a second opinion. So I go out and I find another neurologist, and she's looking at it, and she agrees with the first neurologist. Many times optic neuritis is the first sign. But by this time it had been another year. I really dragged my feet with this. It had been another year. And so I had another MRI, and it was unchanged. And so she's like, well, if your MRIs remain unchanged, then I would be okay with you holding off starting a medication. Because the first doctor was like, maybe you should start, you can start the injections. Now I know a lot of people don't like them, but it's usually our first line. I guess your first line of defense. So it's the first recommendation is start the injections. And I was like, shots? I hate shots. No, thank you. That's when I ran to the second opinion. And so with her, she was like, well, your MRI has remained unchanged. As long as it stays the same, we can just we can just see where this goes. And so some time passes, and all of a sudden, just one day, I'm just walking through the house and it feels like something just hits me back of my neck. I mean, like something like pause you in your tracks. And I'm like, oh, to the point I get on my knees. My husband's home. He's like, whoa, what's going on? I was like, my neck. And all of a sudden it feels so tight. And he's like, it feels hard as a rock. This is not normal. So yeah, we get a bag of ice and we sit it on there, and the bag of ice feels good. It doesn't even feel like freezing cold. It feels soothing to me. And after a few minutes, it goes away. And I'm like, that's insane. I don't know what that is. I get up and go on. Then the next day, again, back of the neck. And it's like in this spot, like right here, just hard, like sends a sensation through your body. You just pause. You can't move. It's frightening. So then, after it happens a second and third time in a day, I call the doctor's office. And I'm like, hey, this intense pain is hitting me in the back of my neck. And so she's like, okay, now I think you are having a relapse. And she used a different word for it. And I'm trying to think of it, but it's escaping me. But she prescribed me a painkiller and a steroid, prednisone. I started that. It was like a week long of like, you take so many prednisone tablets a day, and then it works its way down, and then you also take these painkillers. And it goes away. But at this point, she was like, I really think we need to consider doing something. So I'm going through all the list of DMTs, and all of them sound terrifying. So the one that seemed the least terrifying was Copaxone. So the nurse comes out and walks me through how to use it. My husband's there. He's trying to like, okay, you can do this, it's not going to be a big deal. You can do this. Come on. He's keeping the brave face. And, very like, go forth. Let's do this. And many times I would forget to take the injections. And then when I do take them, at least twice, most of the time, I would only get 2 injections in a week. And I'm supposed to take them 3 times a week. I would get this intense chest pain. I would feel like I'm having a heart attack, to the point I would call the nurse hotline for the drug company. And it's like, hey, like 20 minutes after I take this injection, I'm getting this intense chest pain to where I have to pause and sit down. Like, what could this be? And it was like, well, let's just pause for a minute. It just may have been a thing. We know chest pain is a part of it. It usually happens right after the injection, not 20 or 30 minutes later. So then it's like, it keeps happening. So I guess after I have a record of a number of calls to this hotline, they're like, you know what? Don't take it anymore. You should just stop this, right? Just stop taking the injection. So I call the doctor and tell her. And she's like, okay, well, your MRI is still unchanged. So let's just pause for a minute and see where we go from here. So then 2019 comes around. Every year I'm having my MRIs, and I think like 2 years it's gone unchanged. So 2019 comes, and I have my MRI, and my doctor calls me and says, got your MRI results in. I think you need to come in. We need to have a talk. Yikes. Okay. We need to have a talk right now, immediately, in a hurry. I think she may even call me from her cell phone. I was like, call me on your personal time? Oh my gosh, what did it say? Well, it says I have several new lesions. So here I am, several new lesions. And now she's like, we need to make a decision. So I'm like, well, maybe I can go back to the injections, but just don't use Copaxone. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe I could just try the generic version and maybe I won't have the same results. Well, I tried the generic version, just the glutathione acetate, and ended up having the same issue. So then I get off that. So in the midst of all this, which I've forgotten to mention, I go and find an MS specialist. And I'm like, this MS specialist is going to have all the answers, because this is all they do. It's multiple sclerosis. So the first one I see, he's like the professor of neurology. He has all the answers. I'm thinking in my mind, this he just black out on me? He has all the answers. He should be able to tell me what it is that's going on. So I'm like, I'm going to go see him. So I go to see this specialist. And he's looking at me like, you sure you got multiple sclerosis? And he's looking at my MRIs. And he literally looks at the MRIs. And he looks at me sitting on the table. And then he looks at my MRIs. And then he looks at me on the table. And back at the MRIs. And I'm sitting there like, is he seeing something he never seen before? Like, why is he looking like that? And then he literally says, did someone drop you on your head as a baby? And I'm like, if they did, I don't think they'd admit it now. But no, I don't think so. And he literally said, what are we going to do with you? He's like, well, let's just do a vitamin D supplement. We'll keep our eye on you. Now, in that moment, in between going back and forth with these other neurologists, I was so upset. I literally walked to my car after that appointment and was in tears. Because I'm like, I come to a specialist, and he acts like he has no clue. But he tells me to take vitamin D, and he'll keep an eye on me. So does he think I have MS? I was just so upset I just had to leave. So in the midst of all that, and even talking to my regular neurologist, I'm like, do you think this is multiple sclerosis? Do you really think this is what it is? And it's like, I'm 90% sure. And so finally, after this 2019 appointment where my MRI changed, it was like, what else can it be? At this point, I feel like we have a definite diagnosis. And so here I go again. Let me talk to this MS specialist, but let me talk to somebody else in their office. So then this lady tells me, let's not worry about it. You can come back in 6 months. We'll talk about it. We'll review over it. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I got one neurologist who's like, you need to start something now. The MRI's changed. You've shown progression. We need to come up with a plan. And then I have like the first specialist who was like, we'll just keep an eye on you. And the second specialist in the same office is like, no big deal. You don't need to be thinking about DMTs or anything like that. And I'm like, but do I have multiple sclerosis? And the nurse in that office says, oh yes, the doctor says those are definitely MS lesions. So you definitely feel I have MS, but you think I should just hold off. But then I had someone else over here who's like, yeah, you have MS. You show progression. We need to make a plan now. I don't understand why everyone's not on the same page. So right now I'm not on a DMT. I was supposed to start Ocrevus, but now I'm on the fence because I am concerned about starting a DMT that will suppress my immune system while we're in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm kind of just walking a tightrope right now. And I really need to make some tough decisions, and I'm a little afraid to. But I have my official diagnosis, in which, looking back over the years, I can kind of see where maybe this was kind of lingering in the wind all this time, and I never knew what it was. Just different things from just being in my 20s. And I would just get so tired in random places where it's loud and people are having fun, and I would get so tired that I can just go to sleep. I slept a lot in college, go to class, come back, go to sleep, go to another class, go to sleep, go to one of the clubs or organizations I was a part of, and just come back and go to sleep. I slept a lot. And at the time, I'm just like, I'm just tired. I just sleep a lot. Not thinking that there could have possibly been something wrong all that time. And then I had a bout with vertigo. Still didn't link it to anything, but now I wonder if that's a symptom too. So here I am. We're going into late summer 2020, and now I got to figure out if I'm going to start a DMT. So on one side, do I start a DMT so I don't set myself up for something really bad down the road? Or do I hold off because coronavirus is over there and I don't want to be more susceptible to having this infection and not being able to fight it adequately? So if you are on a DMT, and especially on one where it suppresses your immune system, tell me how it's been right now in the midst of all this that we're going through right now with COVID-19 and give me some insight. I could use it because I'm so confused. I have no clue what to do. I try to eat well, but the last couple of days I've had some really bad moments where I have not been eating on my Wall's protocol plan. To be honest, I've had cookies and the bread and the cheese and the French fries. It's just been a mess, and I'm acting as if I won't pay the price for this. So I need to get my mind right about that. So any and all advice is appreciated. I know I'm not the only one going through these different types of issues, even though they kind of consider MS the snowflake disease, where everybody is slightly different in their symptoms and how they're affected. I feel like there's some things that we do share in common. So let me know. I'd love to hear it as I try to make these hard decisions. And I plan to document it along the way. So, like I said in one of my other videos, like I say in my voicemail and to my parents, and I think even in my email signature, have a great day on purpose.